Hey YouTube, this is Bharat from ReadyReady's LLC. Today we are going to see how to perform some basic but very effective server hardening for a Linux server. This will also help you ward off any common attacks such as SSH brute forcing, password cracking, and any other such attacks like port scanning and stuff like that. This will also help you reduce your security risks on the internet for your server. So let's get on with it. So I have this Ubuntu 20.04 Linux instance, and this is a fresh instance. Let's assume that you've got this from a cloud provider. So usually in the cloud, when you're apart from AWS that I've worked with, if you're dealing with maybe DigitalOcean or any other provider, they give you direct root access to these servers. So the first step would be for any good security is to disable root access in the SSH. But before that, let's get on with our updates and upgrades. So I'll do an apt-get update. And apt-get upgrade. As you can see, we have many upgrades pending for our server. It might take some time, but let's be patient. We're almost done. So first what happens is it tries to download these packages and then it unpacks them, and then it runs all the setup instructions and triggers that will happen after the setup. So that's the process that happens when you run an update on any Linux OS or any operating system for that matter. You can keep this as the package maintainers version, since this is a fresh server. But if you're doing this on an existing server, I would suggest keeping the version that is currently available, or else it's going to break things. At least if you have done any changes to the SSH config, then I would suggest not to choose the package managers version, because it will set up a totally new, fresh SSH config. Okay, now that we are done with the updates and upgrades, let's go ahead with the first step. Let's fix our SSH. So etc ssh config, this is common across all Linux servers. So first thing you want to do is change the port of your SSH. You could do something like 2202 for that matter, and the next step would be to disable root login. Yeah, and what you could do is you can set up max authentication retries to maybe 5. And what this does is, if anyone tries to, let's say, continuously SSH into your server with wrong password, it will block them. Next, we surely have to enable public key authentication, and this will enable like passwordless login to your server. And apart from this, everything can be left as it is. Okay, so let's save this part. The next thing you might want to do is to add a new user. Let's say the user could be Ubuntu. You can set a password. You can give any name, but I choose to do it as Ubuntu, and I'll leave all the details empty. Once that's done, what you could do is you could make this user a sudo user. So how can you do that? You can just go to etc sudo first, and here you see root has these permissions that it can perform anything. You can do the same thing for Ubuntu. You can just say all is equal to all colon all. Yeah, and this will say that if Ubuntu wants to perform any sudo tasks, he can do so. So save this. That's one thing. And next, if you remember, we enabled the SSH key based authentication, that is the pub authentication was set to yes. Now we need to have a private key and a public key for that matter. So let's go to home dot, or let's just authenticate as Ubuntu. Okay, now we'll say SSH keygen -t RSA. Let's generate an RSA key. Yeah, we'll leave this to defaults. If you want to set a passphrase to your key, by all means do it, but for the sake of this tutorial, I'm not doing it. So now we just have to get the public key, SSH ID underscore RSA pub. Now this pub key is what sits in the authorized keys file. Now what is the authorized keys file? For example, it is a list of keys that are authorized to access the server through a particular user. So for Ubuntu, it would be home ubuntu.ssh. Yeah, in this folder you have your keys, right? So you'll just make another file, authorized keys. Yeah, and then you'll just, since it's a fresh file, you'll just say ID underscore RSA pub, and whatever I'm grabbing from that file, I can just redirect it into the authorized keys. So when I do a cat on authorized keys, I'll be able to see my key. Now this pub key is important, and this other key that you have here, ID underscore RSA, that is your private key. Now that is something that you shouldn't expose to anyone, and it should be totally safe. So you should not share it with anyone that you're not supposed to. I'll pause this video just to get the access to that key, and then or maybe let's continue, because I'm going to erase this instance anyway. So I'll just do something. I'll just cat this, and this is how the SSH private key looks. It's this big, so don't get worried. Just copy this, and then you can use something like Sublime Text to maybe save that file. So I'll just reduce the size that you can see it, and then I'll save it. So I'll say ID underscore security ready stop key. So this will be my key. And now what I'll do is I'll try to authenticate using that key. So as first, I'll try to log in as root. At the rate, let me get the IP. If config. So this is my public IP. So let me try. Oh yeah, I forgot to restart the SSH service. Service SSH key restart. And now if I exit and try to log back in, first of all, it was trying to port 22, but it's not working. So I'll just go to 2022. And that's not working as well. So I guess we have to check the firewall. No, the firewall doesn't have any rules. So let's check if the SSH key is actually listening. Yeah, it is listening on 2202. And okay, it's 2203. Yeah, there it is. Well, I'll try to log in. And it shouldn't let me log in. So basically, even if the password is correct, it's not going to let me log in. But if I do the same thing with, let's say, the Ubuntu user, and I give the password, I'm in. So it's allowing me to access from the Ubuntu server user, but it's not letting me access the root. And if I do a sudo -s and give my password, I'm a root. Yeah. So let's exit this, and we can then try accessing this user through an SSH key. So now I'll say public key, I'll say browse file, and then I'll go to my desktop and I'll say security ready key and just say okay. And that's it. I was able to get in. And that's how you enable passwordless SSH login. And that is the first step in securing your server, making sure that root is not able to log in. The next thing you can do is you can go ahead and install fail to ban. Apt install fail to ban. Now, to explain what fail to ban usually does is you can use it to jail any users that are trying to brute force into your Linux instance or Linux server through the SSH port. See, usually when you change the port from the standard port to a non-standard port, you are already blocking off the 50% of traffic that's actually trying to brute force any public IP on 22. So the next step to ward off any additional attacks would be to deal with them through fail to ban. So I'll go to etc fail to ban jail.conf. Now this is a very simple configuration. Don't be afraid of it. So it is, if you try to read it, it should be kind of readable, but just to make it simple, what I'll do is I'll just make a backup of it. So move jail.conf to jail.conf.back. Yeah. And I'll create a new jail.conf and do nano jail.conf. Now let's write the configuration. So the first section would be a default section, and then the second section would be an SSH key section. So it's pretty self-explanatory. Here we'll just give an option called ban time, and we'll just say 24 hours. So any IP that repeatedly attempts and is blacklisted, it will be blacklisted for 24 hours. And then we'll just say ignore IP. We'll just give the local subnet. And then if you have your own public IP, you can provide it here. For example, you could say 104.36.81.13/32, and you can end it with a semicolon, and I mean with nothing but this, and then next ignore self is equal to true. That means if any local authentication is happening, then it will ignore it. Okay, next thing, you can say that SSH key is enabled. That is true. And then you can mention the port is equal to 2202, and filter is equal to SSH key, and log path is equal to and the max retry would be 5. So you can keep this in coordination with the max tries on the SSHD config, and this is about it. And then you can just say service failed to ban, restart. Once that's done, you have to check the status to make sure it's running. And yeah, so that's about it. Now that's done, and what you can do next is, like, you could install CSF to manage your ports in the firewall if you don't know how to work with IP tables directly. It's just quite a simple software, but I would urge you to learn IP tables. A lot simpler and easier to manage. So what you could do is you could also use UFW that comes with Ubuntu. So let's check its status. So UFW is allow. So we can say UFW allow 2202 TCP, and it will reflect in our IP. I mean, it will allow that in its firewall table that it maintains. And any other port that you need to allow, whether it be TCP or UDP, you can use this allow command or deny command. So you can read more about UFW on the documentation, but if you need me to make a video specifically dedicated to UFW, do let me know and I'll do it for you. So far what we have done is we have disabled root login. We have created a new user that is going to be used as a primary login, for authentication. And then we have installed fail to ban, and we have also changed the port of SSH, and we have also at the same time generated an SSH key and assigned it to the Ubuntu user, and made sure that the authentication happens through the key as well. But you did notice one thing, that is, even if I keyed in the password for Ubuntu, it allowed me in. So how to disable password completely? Let's see that now. So coming back to the server, SSH config, we missed a particular configuration which says password authentication, and it says it's usually commented out, but we just say uncomment it and say no, and we save it. Another thing you can do is allow hosts, allow users. Okay, that option is not here, but usually what you could do is they allow users, and you can limit the users that can access this server by saying allow users Ubuntu. Save it, service SSH key restart, and then check the status just in case you have done any mistakes. Now once this is done, I'll try to log into this server now. With config, I'm sorry, I keep forgetting the IP. So Ubuntu, I'd break this, and then I'll just 2202. And now if you can see, it's totally blocking the password field on my PC for this server. All I can do is browse for a key file and then select that key to log in. And that's it, we are in. So now that we are in, let's say we have removed the password entirely, but what about sudo? So when you're actually giving access to a user with the private key and not letting him know about the password, will he run the sudo command when sudo is going to ask for a password anyway? So for that, we'll go into the sudoers file. And what we are going to do is make sure that we change the lines something like this. So when you change the line like this, what it says basically is Ubuntu user should be able to perform all the commands without a password. So we'll just save this as it is. We'll exit, and we'll exit once again, and we'll try to SSH, and let's look for the file. And press OK. Now that we are in, I'll just say sudo ls, and it's not asking for a password from me anymore. So sudo apt-get update, and it should not ask me for a password. Now you're looking at this specific error, where it says it's not able to resolve this particular domain to this IP. So what you could do is you could just copy it. You could go to etc hosts, and right beside localhost, you can just enter it here and save it. So you see, it's giving me an error while saving that it's permission denied. That's because I forgot to do a sudo ahead. So, and that's done. So now if I say sudo apt-get update or anything with sudo, it is not going to give me that error anymore. Thank you for watching this video. I hope it has helped you understand the basics of server hardening for a Linux server. I would, however, suggest to get professional help if you're dealing with a production environment. But if it's for your personal server, I think this is the best you can do, at least to safeguard yourself from the common cyber threats that are out there. If you're looking forward to any other videos that we can do to make you understand the concepts of Linux, please do let us know, and we'll surely do it for you. Please like, subscribe, and share this channel. It will help us and grow, and at the same time encourage us to do more and more for the community moving forward.